Hello, this is Greg with Aeres Chronicles, and this is the second episode of the Aeres Chronicler, which is my new interview series. Well, I'll be interviewing independent creators and artists in the comic book space, tabletop role playing, video games, if I can find them. And today I have a special treat for you. I have Robert Livingston, who is the creator of a comic called Kaiju Dayz. That's Dayz. Now, if you're not familiar with that and you're a big kaiju fan, you've got to check it out. It's basically a kind of cartoony kaiju sitcom where the kaiju are not a completely dysfunctional family, but they have some of that inner dynamic there that you might remember from classic sitcoms like Dinosaur back in the 90s. And they do have an antagonistic relationship with humans. They live in, human world, kind of your typical Earth setting, and many of them are obsessed with destruction. So there's a lot of fun, a lot of hijinks, jokes. It's a little cute. It's not too cute. There is action in there, kaiju-based action. So Robert is the main writer of the comic and has been working on it probably since the beginning. I'm hesitant to call you the creator because you do have a whole creative team also working for you, including artists and people who have done cover art, and you have a great colorist and a lot of other people who are assisting you. But I wanted to get started out by asking you. Now, keep in mind, for those of you listening, he did answer some of these questions in the back of the first issue of the comic, which came out recently. It had a successful Kickstarter, and I'm going to provide links to that at the end of the video. They'll be in the description on YouTube. Definitely check that out, and the website as well. But from what I understand, this has been going on. You've been working on this for many years with storyboard shorts, short comics, animatics, character designs, even animations. Can you tell me how you got started in it?
How far back should I go? Like right to the beginning?
I am curious to know.
I'm thinking about it because technically Kaiju Day started differently, I would say, back in 2017. In like 2017, 2016, it actually started as a completely different project, which was called President Kaiju. And it would have been a more dramatic story originally, which would have been more focused on, it would have been a little bit political, but it would have just been about Monster Island becoming a sovereign nation because basically humanity had become so good at fighting off kaiju that they needed to find a different solution in this new world. And I didn't do it back then because we had the election going on right around that time, and I didn't want people thinking I was making parallels to it. But a lot of characters were still present in that first draft. Like Big Mama was present in that first draft. So were Pestania, and so were Junior. There was actually going to be a fourth member of the family who got written out as the draft changed up, because she was sticking around. She would the family was still present in that first draft. They were just more side characters to further the plot. But I forgot what had promoted me to change things up. I think it was just because I didn't feel like writing something so serious again, because I had another project that was brewing back then. I just felt like I needed something that was a little bit more of a break from the seriousness of what I was writing there. And I decided, let's do something more lighthearted. Let's do something I felt like would resonate with people more. And I shifted Kaiju Dayz, and I shifted into the Kaiju Dayz draft, I would say around probably 2019. It was around 2019 that was when I started shifting into what was Kaiju Dayz current form.
So definitely had an interesting upbringing there as a comic. Have you thought about revisiting President Kaiju in the future, or does this comic kind of cover all the beats that you wanted to cover in that one?
It covers some of the beats and some of the characters that appear in it. If you had read issue 1 of Kaiju Dayz, the character Zilgar who briefly appears in like the middle to final act. He
Yeah.
was actually originally the protagonist of President Kaiju. And I just I just reused him for this one. Some ideas from it are still present here, like humanity being at least somewhat formidable at fighting off kaiju. That is an idea that's still present in there.
Yeah.
And just generally the whole vibe that humanity has grown to just kind of live with the fact that giant monsters have been present in this world. Because in the world of Kaiju Dayz, like giant monsters have been present for a long time.
Yeah, and they, as a general rule, it seems like they do want to kill all humans. Well, not kill all humans, but like they want to cause destruction, but their own, I guess, their own downfalls prevent them from doing everything they want to do, which is part of the
Oh
comedy.
no, the reasoning, it varies between kaiju.
Yeah,
Some kaiju want to do that, some don't. Some want to protect humanity. It varies amongst everyone. It's
sure.
just not on a level that everyone can just go total extinction level on humanity
Yeah,
itself.
of course not. You wouldn't have a comic then. It'd be boring.
Yeah, exactly.
If you Google Kaiju Dayz, you will immediately know, just by pulling up the webpage, the type of tone and feel that the comic has. So it has a very strong identity. I would compare it to, a popular web comic, but it does have a physical release. It is a fully fledged comic. The kaiju themselves are somewhat anthropomorphic, which is I believe, would be a necessity for this type of thing because they talk, they have familial interactions, they joke around, they laugh, they
Oh, you gotta remember, we
cry.
actually did experiment with them having a lot more serious designs at the start.
Yeah,
But eventually we shifted it into the cartoony look to give them a better chance of emoting. Because that was another thing that I don't think was mentioned, was how this all started originally. What I mean, besides the President Kaiju thing, was that right after we went into trying to make it a cartoon. Well, I did before, because I decided I wanted to try in directing like a cartoon release and also writing one as well. That was when the original drafts had come up. And because I was in the cusp of trying to pitch it as a cartoon,
hmm
but I mean, we went through like all these drafts. I wrote up like an entire pilot script. There were all these animatics that got made as well. But the main reason I stopped was because, one, I did not have that many like connections in the animation industry. It would have taken me like a long time, and also I felt like there were a lot of things I need to improve on as a writer to really, if I wanted to get on that level. And I was just thinking, I knew comics really well. Already had the grasp of it. I already had reach in there, so let me go into this area I already knew. It was also because animation is expensive. Let's not
yes,
lie, it is very expensive. Even
even
with my even
yeah,
with my friend who I was working with, Esther Pimentel, also known as Gilly Art on Twitter, she had given me the friend rate when it had come to the animatics. And even then, that was still expensive. I'm not harshing it, because every
right.
animator, I believe that everyone should charge what they feel that they're worth. And I feel like everyone is entitled to a livable wage, or anything that helps them. But for me at the time, it was taking me months to pay off some of these animatics, because I would rather she was paid up for it entirely than doing half and half.
So you're still kind of riding the wave of the Kickstarter, which was highly successful. At least, you exceeded your goal significantly. Made 3,700, I believe. And that probably has kept you pretty busy. Do you have any thoughts in the future about Kaiju Dayz #2? Have you done work on that yet, or are we
Oh
still
yeah,
trying to?
we actually we're working on the next draft for that. Well, I wrote up the first draft for the script, and I gave it to my editor, Evan Davis, who was also, my publisher with Gen Comics. And because the next story is supposed to introduce Eviscerex, which is obviously a pretty popular character with people who follow the project.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, it was a little bit of a back and forth, because the draft was giving me trouble. I mean, to be honest, issue 1 gave me trouble to write as well, and it was only really the intro that gave me trouble. I went through like maybe 4 drafts for the intro, trying to figure out what was like the proper balance to really get it going, because I kept feeling like I was doing 2 intros in one every time I tried to do it. I always try to keep the intro short at, like, maybe a few pages, like, 3 or 4 pages at most. But every single thing I was going through, it just did not feel right. It just felt like it was going on for too long, and it was just going into something else that wasn't really working to segue into the rest of the plot. And eventually I just asked Evan. I was like, Evan, why don't we just use the pilot script I wrote? And he's like, all right, let me see the pilot. And he reads the pilot, and a day later he gets back to me. He's like, yes, we have to use this. We should really use this. This is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So issue 1 of Kaiju Dayz is literally just the pilot for the cartoon turned into comic form. Issue 2, though, is going more into, it's more going to be focused on Pestania, actually. Originally, we were going to have the entire family involved fully, but we had decided we were going to give everyone in the family like their own little focused storylines for the next 3 issues. And issue 2 is a Pestania focused one. The rest of the family do appear in some capacity, but it is mostly focused on Pestania, and also introducing her friend group Valley and Butte, because the whole plot of it is that we have a Viscerex who has arrived on Earth, and she needs to find, she's been forced to come here by her people. She needs to find strong kaiju to join her people's galactic army in their galactic conquest. And she lays her eyes on Pestania, who, for reasons I'm not going to disclose, thinks that she is a perfect fit for the Empire.
Tell me a little bit more about the kaiju themselves, so people have a better understanding of what they're like. Now, obviously, it's a family type of unit. For example, you've got Big Mama, who's kind of the matriarch or type of character, for the kaiju, at least in issue 1. She's even on the front cover, kind of breaking up a fight between a couple of other, folks, kaiju that are part of the family, and it's more like a peacekeeper type of role.
Well, yeah, she's breaking up the fight between Pestania and Junior.
Right.
It's just basically the idea of, you have the family, which is Big Mama, the mother, Pestania, the daughter, and Junior, the son. The father isn't in the picture, and that's explained. That's already explained in issue 1. And so Big Mama has been raising them on her own for a good while.
Mm-hmm.
And Big Mama is very, might makes right in her eyes, because that's how she grew up. You get things through force, you get things through show of power, but she does care deeply for her children, and she doesn't want them to be harmed. So that's why she's pretty much, even though they're teenagers now, they're, Junior and Pestania are like, 15 or like 15, 16 now. And she still believes in preparing them for the world out there. Even though they go off on their own, sometimes there are areas that they explore. Junior himself is already considered like, a little bit of the family star child because of how good he is at rampaging. And yes, Pestania is in that, unsure phase of her life, because she's always, she feels like, it's like Junior inherited the best traits physically from both his mom and dad. He's big, he's naturally tough, he can tank like a lot of stuff. Pestania more or less inherited like half and half.
So yeah, and based on just the feedback that you've seen on the internet, who would you say, at least in issue 1, is the fan favorite? Who gets the most attention from people that have read Kaiju Dayz?
Probably Pestania and Big Mama do.
Okay, cool.
They are generally, it's like, I can't really say that there's been like focus on one. It just feels like the entire family as a unit themselves have gotten good attention and responses, which is what I was hoping to hear. Right. It didn't feel like one person was overshadowing the other. It did feel like there was a proper distribution of screen time, a page time between them, and all the readers got a proper grasp on what the characters were, what they were about. And there were a lot of scenes that they did enjoy, because I did hear that this character is my favorite, which is, Pestania and either Pestania, Junior, or Big Mama. But I did like that I saw more people saying that I enjoy the family. Like, I enjoy the whole family.
I do as well. Now, not to spoil too much for people who might want to pick it up and read it, but you do eventually introduce kind of an antagonistic force, Vassal the Righteous. Tell me more about that character.
He's not the only antagonistic force that's there. He's one of the many different types of, I will say right now, hero kaiju heroes. They're just
Yeah,
referred to as heroes.
kind of like Ultraman type of, not quite, but like
It's
a
not just
different,
Ultraman
yeah.
types. There is an Ultraman type character that is coming, and that's like that's Hypernova. And he's got history with Big Mama. That's something that's going to come up in the third issue most likely.
Oh, okay.
But there are a subsection of kaiju that are known as heroes. And it's not just like, robots. It's not just Ultraman types. These are kaiju who have decided that they are, going to dedicate themselves to fighting for humanity, to protect them and stuff like that. That's what brings in other aspects that wasn't mentioned in the first issue because I was saving it for later ones. Like, this was briefly mentioned in the first issue, was the organization known as Kiru, which is the Kaiju International Response Union, which is like, this is the group that responds to like any kaiju based threat that goes on. In issue 1, what you're seeing is like a general military response. You haven't seen the Kiru response yet, because the whole thing is with Kiru has access to the hero kaiju, but they also have access to giant robots. There are
Gotcha.
other things that we're building up on the sidelines that are going to come into effect. Like, we were borrowing ideas, we were taking ideas, and because I grew up with kaiju stuff, I grew up with Super Sentai and everything like that, and I do want to incorporate a lot of that into the world of Kaiju Dayz, because we did want to make a Super Sentai group in here, and the main idea I was going with it is that if I want to introduce a Super Sentai group in this, I want the Super Sentai group to be private military contractors. So
Yeah.
basically, the Power Rangers in the Kaiju Dayz universe are mercenaries. They're PMCs.
Plus, you don't want to overextend and overload, the storyline with all these elements too early on. It has to
Oh
develop
yeah,
magic.
exactly. You introduce it gradually. You don't just throw things at people and say, "Hey, why don't we have this and that?" It wouldn't have been that good of an issue if I just spent like, a good chunk of issue 1 talking about like, "Oh yeah, there's all these different groups that are present in the world itself that, we're not going to see right now. We're just going to talk about." No. We just focus on what's going on in the current family dynamic situation.
Now, obviously, you grew up watching probably on TNT, Monster Vision, or wherever you could find it, Godzilla movies, maybe Mystery Science Theater 3000, or
Yes, it was mostly
Gamera
mystery
movies.
site. It was mostly mystery site. I know you got that from reading like the back
Yeah.
of the back of the book.
So, what would you say would be one of your biggest influences in writing and creating this comic? It doesn't have to be kaiju based, but maybe something unrelated.
I would have to say maybe Pacific Rim, Kaiju Max, and the Family Matters sitcom. There's a lot of different sitcoms in
Yeah.
general. I would be thinking about when it came to this. I honestly wasn't that big of a sitcom person. I say we put Family Matters on there, but I more was a Full House kind of guy, I'll admit.
Yeah, I liked them, but I was more of a Seinfeld guy when I was, that age. But not I don't want you to spoil too much, and feel free to say no comment to this question. But although Kaiju Dayz is a lighthearted and mostly comedic affair, do you have any really sad or, heartbreaking moments that you're planning to do in future issues?
I'm gonna say no comment to that.
Okay,
I have a plan, but I don't want to spoil it.
no problem. Was the first issue complete when you launched the Kickstarter, or we're still working on that?
Oh no, it was done. It was already done.
Well, that's the way to do it.
When we launched that Kickstarter, like everything on it was already done. We finished the issue like in I think either March or May of last year. But as soon as we did that Kickstarter, yeah, all the art and everything like that it was fully finished.
Oh,
It
cool.
was fully
Yeah,
finished, and everyone on the team was already paid for as well.
that's the way to do it. And it looks like you did find a publisher of some sort who's Gin Comics. Can you tell me about your relationship with Gin Comics?
Oh yeah, I've known the guy who runs it, Evan Davis, for a while, like a couple of years. We ran in like the same comic circles, and he was the one that offered to me about the idea that he was starting up a publisher, and if I wanted to pitch something to it, because at the time I had Kaiju Dayz and I was working on it, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. Like, at one part of me wanted to go the webcomic route, but I did the webcomic route with Tom and Artie, and the webcomic route will burn you out so much. I was just thinking,
Yeah.
I do not want to do that again. And I thought about just going the indie publisher route, but we have so many publishers, but they are all so hard to reach. And a part of me was thinking, I should have made Kaiju Dayz in a way that I didn't care about it, and I wanted to just like, I could have just thrown it off to anyone and taken the deal. But I just thought, oh man, I actually care about this project now. I can't just throw it out into the ether and just be okay with any offer that comes to me. I actually do want this to grow in like a proper way without taking like a huge gamble on it.
Uh, yeah, I agree. And everyone who's picked up the comic that I see online and in my Twitter feed, folks like Mazer Squad have reviewed the comic. I really enjoy their videos. Everyone likes it, but they get a few laughs out of it. It's funny. It can be heartwarming too. Good kaiju action. I love the character designs as well. And did you ever get any like direct messages or private messages from people saying, "Hey, I really love this. I connected with it," or anything like that?
One or two, not like a major amount, but sometimes on some sites where we post the comic up at, you can see like people leaving like a few comments saying how much they enjoyed it.
That's cool. That's really cool. Now you've got alternate covers as well. I did notice those. Is that going to be something you plan to do for future issues
Oh
as
yeah,
well?
that's going to be a consistent thing. We have already contacted two people that are going to be doing variant covers for next issue.
Okay, great, because those are pretty cool, especially the ultra realistic ones. Like that one guy, Gary Yan, is that how you pronounce the name?
Gary, yeah. Gary Yan, yeah.
Yeah, great cover, all great alternate cover there.
Oh yeah, he sometimes goes by Scarlet, but I'm not sure. He occasionally changes his screen name from time to time.
Well, I hope the project continues to be very successful, and I'm sure it will be. It has a unique feel, as I mentioned earlier, and you're working very hard on it. It's not like you're slacking off for sure. I'm sure you're working on this almost full time.
Oh yeah, well, not full time when I can. I work
Yeah,
a full time job, so it's
same
making
here.
time for it. I mean, even before we started this interview, I was already working on the next draft of issue 2, and I was getting through the intro. I wanted to make at least I made a goal because I want to have the entire draft done before or at least in the middle of next month. So I'm trying to reach a goal of at least 5 pages per day or 5 pages every 2 days.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot. Well, it's not a ton, but it's a pretty crisp, production schedule.
Well, I mean, it feels like a ton when you're also trying to, I'm one of those guys where it's kind of hard for me to write something and then not think about it while I'm working on. The first draft is always you got to get it done and then get it through with. But I will always be pausing at dialogue scenes and just start thinking, how does this exactly flow? How would this look visually on the page as well? Because I don't like to just put it down and not give the artist anything to work with. I like to work with the artist and make sure the script sounds coherent enough, they can understand what's going on, and if they need any help to understand something, I usually want to hunt down the references for them myself instead of just giving it to them and saying, "Oh yeah, good luck. This is what you got to look up," and I'll just leave it at that. It's like one of the things I'm probably going to have done for the next issue is because we have two artists working with us. It's Ninja, and then there's also another artist named Chio, also known as Rosada Zapata. And I knew Rosada. I knew Rosada before too. She was originally possibly going to be the artist on Kaiju Dayz until she couldn't commit to it. But now I basically just go to her mostly for concept art because she has like a big background in kaiju stuff as well. So if I need like a specific idea done, she'll be the main one I go to for it. The one thing I wanted to get done was that create a better like discrepancy of height with the kaiju when they're on the island, because there were some scenes in issue 1 where I just felt like the height scale wasn't really displayed well in some of this.
And it helps to have a creative team who's enthusiastic about what they're working on too. You don't want someone who's just in it for the money. And it sounds like your people are definitely on board.
Oh yeah, that was a major thing before we found Ninja. When like 2 of my friends, which was Rosada and the other one was Reed Hawker, when they couldn't commit to doing the full comic and we had to do an open call searching for artists, I will tell you, as someone who's had to do multiple open calls for searching for artists, I honestly do not like doing it that much.
No, I try to avoid it when I can. I'm very particular about picking my artists, and
yeah, I will go through everyone in my circle first who I think will fit it, for who will fit it. And if no one says yes and I have to do an open call, it's just annoying for you have to wait for the plethora of messages to come through. And you will get all these people who will pitch to you and their art style does not fit what you're looking for, even if you are really, really particular about what you are looking for.
Exactly. In the past, I've made the mistake of going on Twitter and saying things like, I need someone who can do comic book style cyberpunk backgrounds. And I'll get bombarded by like 50 people who are either spam bots or they do like AI stuff and it's like anime, and I'm like, this is not what I want.
Spam bots, and also those ones who do like Twitch icons and stuff like that. And they pitch at you, and I'm just saying, every time I get the Twitch icon ones, I just keep thinking, what are you doing? Why exactly would I even consider hiring you for this?
Exactly. Like, what are you doing with your life?
There is no display. I mean, there needs to be a portfolio or at least a display of what's being done. When Ninja had sent her stuff over to me, I looked at it and I went to my publisher and I just said, yes, she's the one. She is exactly the one that we need. She is perfect for this.
That's awesome. That's a windfall for sure for any type of independent creator.
Oh yeah, I mean, she was the most expensive one, but I didn't even care. I was just like, I will make the expense. Like, we were just like, we will make it for this one because this is an art style that we cannot lose.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. Now, one last question. Again, feel free to move on from this question if it makes you feel uncomfortable answering. But it seems like you're mostly completely not apolitical. You don't get into the world of social media as far as like comic book clicks. Do you associate yourself with something like Iron Age or Comicsgate or anything like that, or you just try to stay away?
I don't associate with those groups.
Okay.
I read people's stuff, and the problem is, especially nowadays when it comes to social media atmosphere, because everything that's happened on Twitter so far and in social media in general, it has made it tougher for creators that do not want to partake in this stuff.
Exactly.
And I'm talking very much a lot in terms of the comic writers, because I see that, and I've spoken about this with a lot of people, especially like I said, the other comic writers. There is this problem where the comic writers who are working on books, they want to post their stuff. They will post their stuff, but they are not getting as much reach as they used to. And everyone would say, "Oh, you gotta comment on more stuff. You gotta talk about more stuff. You gotta be doing this and that." But people are just like, I want to talk about my book. I want to connect with my book, and I don't want to comment on every pop culture thing that's going on here, especially even if I don't care about it.
I don't talk about it.
Yeah, and you can't get artwork done all the time, like every single day. Even on the Kaiju Dayz Twitter, I do repost artwork. Yeah, I admit I do that because it's a way to keep up retention, and also it's something to reach out to people who haven't seen it before. You gotta remember, the only reason the Kaiju Dayz comic really blew up was because of that Eviscerax short we got made, and that was the third time I reposted it. when it finally, like, kicked off all the attention that the comic got.
Yeah, it's got to click. Do you have any like a YouTube channel with like trailers,
Oh
behind the
yeah,
scenes videos?
we do have a YouTube channel, and it's just called Kaiju Dayz on YouTube. That
Okay,
contains all the animatics and everything that has been done so far. We are working on one more animatic. It was supposed to be done a while ago, but things kind of happened in life. But the animator Gilly, she's getting back on it. I'm not going
right.
to say it's going to be done soon, but it's going to be done.
Hey, that's fine. Well, Robert, your answers have been interesting and insightful, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today to talk
Yeah, no
about
problem.
Kaiju Days. And um, Kaiju continues to live on. It's one of the most popular things right now.
Yeah, of course.
Kong X Godzilla and all this. Um, but anyway, so did you have anything else that you wanted to add at the end of the interview today?
There isn't much I would say, except we are keeping to the same schedule that we had for Kaiju Days before.
Okay.
So most likely a campaign for the next issue you're probably going to see pop up this summer.
Great. Okay, looking forward to it. I backed the first one for the
Oh,
physical copy.
oh yeah, good to hear. Yeah, we'll be doing physical. Be doing physical as well again, along with other little goodies. This next campaign is only going to be focused on Kaiju Days itself, so the goal may not be as high as last one was.
Sure. And yeah, so in terms of social media links, how to reach out to you, you can find Kaiju Dayz at Kaiju Dayz. That's the Twitter account with a capital K, capital D, in case you can't find it. Again, that is DAYZ. So you can follow them on Twitter. Now I'm going to post more links, such as to their website, their YouTube, and everything will be in the comments. If you want to find out more about what I do, I run a small LLC called Doing Dragon Adventures with my friend who helps me. He's a multi-talented artist, and we make Dungeons and Dragons books. We're working on our own Kaiju versus Mecha role-playing game that's been in the works for a long time. We've got our own YouTube, so I'll post links to myself as well. My Twitter handle is right there under my dragon picture. So go there. I'm pretty active on there. And I think that wraps it up for today. But again, thanks again, Robert, for joining us. And
Yes, no
this
problem.
this will be on YouTube probably in the next few days. So check it out.
All right, cool. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye.